Hi guys, how you all doing? Welcome back to the channel. Here I am, as you can see, at St James's Park today, fresh from this morning's press conference. Thought I'd pop down here to speak to you guys. Before I get into the video, please do subscribe if you haven't done already. Keen to try and get the subscribers up. Leave your comments below as ever, and I will endeavour to get through them later on. I'm going to get on to a video about Champions League qualification, where I see Newcastle at, their chances of making it into that top five. I'll take a look through the remaining games and what I feel they need to get in terms of a points total. But before we get on to that, I want to talk about this morning's press conference. The vast majority, 95% of this morning, was surrounding Eddie Howe's return following his pneumonia diagnosis. And it was some really strong stuff from the Newcastle United manager today on the back of his illness. Of course, he's not been seen for nearly 3 weeks. Admitted to hospital 2 weeks ago. Today he spent 4 nights in hospital here in Newcastle before being sent home to recover at home, and only this week on Wednesday did he return to the Newcastle United training ground in preparation for his return in the dugout at home to Ipswich Town here at St James's Park tomorrow in a must-win game. But Eddie was very open, honest. He was very philosophical this morning. I feel from listening to him, if you read back at his words and just being in the room with him this morning, you can tell that he's had a real fright with his health scare. He felt, I think, that he was untouchable in terms of getting properly ill. He felt he was young and fit and strong, and he would just shake things off. But by the sounds of what he's gone through these past 2 to 3 weeks, as I say, it's given him a real fright, and it's given him a completely different perspective on his job here at Newcastle United, but also on his life as well. And he had plenty of thanks today. He had a huge thanks to the NHS and Charlotte Milne, who I think is one of the nurses, the head nurses who's cared for him over the last week or two. And also a big thank you to the club doctor, Paul Catterson, a man who's been at the club now for many years, Paul, certainly before my time here. And Paul decided 2 weeks ago tonight to go round to Eddie's house to check on him and see how he was doing, because he'd obviously missed a few days training. Eddie didn't go to him. He went to Eddie and did some blood tests and realised, look, you need to be in hospital. And Eddie hadn't gone to training during the week. He said he was really struggling to get out of bed. He went for a shower the morning or the 2 days after the Leicester game to get up and go to training, and realised he couldn't even go in, and it was so unlike him. Paul took it in his own hands, the club doctor, to go round to his house and check in on him. Did those blood tests, realised there was something serious at play, and instructed him to admit himself to the hospital, where of course he was then a couple of days later, diagnosed with pneumonia. And it's been a sort of slow step-by-step process to get back to full health for Eddie Howe. And you know, Eddie said that if it wasn't for the doctor and his quick intervention, it could have been a completely different story, and the illness could have been significantly more serious than what it was. And by the sounds of it, it was pretty serious. As I've said a number of times, anything that's going to keep Eddie Howe out of training and missing 3 Premier League matches would suggest it's been pretty rough on him. But just listening to Eddie Howe, he's had a real jolt from this, and there's a realisation, a new sense of perspective that, you know, life is more important than football. And you know, he even said, we don't know how long we're on this planet for, we don't know how long we're in jobs and doing what we love to be doing, so we need to cherish every moment of that and really appreciate, 1, the job that we're doing, and 2, the people that are around us and the people that are there and help us and care for us in our hour of need. And Eddie Howe's hour of need has been over the last couple of weeks, and by all accounts everyone close to him has rallied round to get him back onto that training pitch and trying to finish the season on a high. Now, I have to say, he was looking quite well today. He wasn't sounding 100%. He still had a really nasty cough, and he said, you know, physically he feels almost 100%. Mentally, he's back. But he also said that he would be taking tentative steps to his return, and you know, he's going to look at things a little bit differently. He even said that moving forward, he feels he needs to maybe give himself a little bit more care and love and be more aware of what he's doing and try not to just shake things off. And he said, like most men, and he said this was a message to the general public, but like most men, I tend to just shake things off or assume that I'll shake things off for a couple of days and bury it under the carpet and get on with things. And he said that's something moving forward he will learn, a positive he'll take from this, that he needs to check in with himself a little bit more, listen to his body more, and be a little bit kinder to himself. So the self-proclaimed workaholic Eddie Howe, although he said he'll get back to work how he used to, it sounds as though he will be checking up on himself a little bit more and just watching what he's doing, making sure he gets a bit more rest and ensuring that he looks after himself, because perhaps he's not been doing that at all times. And this job, be manager of a Premier League football club, yes, it comes with some amazing trappings financially, of course, and profile, but there are downsides of it. And he probably doesn't see enough of his family, and he probably spends far too many hours at the training ground than he needs to. But the reason Newcastle are doing so well on the pitch is because of the man hours that Eddie Howe puts in. So perhaps he just needs to find a happy medium in there. But it was really intriguing from him this morning. It was quite emotional at times, at some points, listening to him. And in typical Eddie Howe fashion, despite all of this, despite everything happening to him, what he wanted to do was send a message to the general public and say, look, to all you people who don't have the resources, who don't have private health insurance, who don't have a club doctor at hand, to all those people who may be feeling ill and have been feeling ill for a longer period of time, don't suffer in silence. Get checked out, and you never know what kind of situation you can be in. So that was it from Eddie Howe this morning. You can read a lot more about that on the Sky Sports app. There's plenty over on my Twitter account as well. But yeah, that was the main news story from today, and I also wanted to touch on football as well, because you guys will be looking forward to coming back here to St James's Park to see your team in action against Ipswich tomorrow, and in my opinion, what is a must-win match. And you want to talk about football as well. You want to take some positivity out of what's been a difficult couple of weeks. Although things have been good on the pitch, take aside that Aston Villa defeat last weekend, the illness to Eddie Howe has just left a little bit of a cloud over the club over the last couple of weeks, and I think you guys will want to get back to a positive story tomorrow, and that will be the case. If and when you beat Ipswich tomorrow, I think you will win that game. I've been having a look at the games that those top 5 teams have to play between now and the end of the season. As we know by now, it's 3 teams from 5. There's 5 teams separated by 4 points. It's so hard to predict which teams get a Champions League spot and which teams won't. You look at it: Man City on 61, Forest 60, Newcastle 59, and then Chelsea and Villa on 57. What's intriguing is, of course, that Villa and Man City have played a game more. I think that win from Man City the other night over Villa will pretty much secure them a place in the Champions League. Their last 4 games, Man City, are all winnable. They've got Wolves, Southampton, Bournemouth at home and Fulham away. You would think they'll pick up at least 9 points, probably 12 out of those, and 9 points would be enough. That would take City up to 70, and that would be more than enough to qualify for the Champions League. So I think City are pretty much there. I think Villa actually are one of the teams who could potentially pick up full points in their remaining games. Now, they've only got 4 to play. They've got Fulham at home, Bournemouth away. That one will be tough, right enough, but Bournemouth don't have too much to play for, so I would expect Villa to win that. They've got Spurs at home, who they'll probably batter, and then they've got Man United away in the last game of the season, who they will probably batter as well, because Villa have shown they've just got much better players, much better squad to deal with that. So I think if you're Newcastle, you need to look at Villa as a threat, but I think even allowing Villa to pick up full 12 points out of those 4 games, 10 points for Newcastle will be enough, because 12 points for Villa would leave them level with Newcastle on points, That would leave Villa on 69, and it'd leave Newcastle on 69. But Newcastle's goal difference is far superior. They're plus 18 at the moment, Villa plus 5, so they're 13 goals better off. So look, even if they were to get full points, which they might not, 10 points mathematically for Newcastle would allow them to be above Villa, and it would pretty much, you would expect them to be above Chelsea as well. Now Chelsea have, of all the teams left, have probably got the hardest fixtures. You've got Everton at home next up, which they should win. They've then got Liverpool at home. Yes, Liverpool have clinched the league by then, but it's still Liverpool. They've then got Newcastle away here at St James's Park, which feels like a massive 6-pointer, almost a 9-pointer actually. Man United at home, and Forest away, a huge one on the final day of the season. So Chelsea, of their 5 games, 2 of them come against teams they're up against for a Champions League spot. One of them Newcastle here, and one of them at home to Forest in the last game. So something has to give in those games. And I think if Newcastle win their 3 games at home against Ipswich, Chelsea and Everton, I think just one more point from those other 2 games, Brighton away and Arsenal away, will do it. I don't even think it's necessary. I think 9 points might do it, but I think 10 points would be sure, because I can't see Chelsea picking up, although their goal difference is the same as Newcastle, I can't see them picking up enough points to overhaul Newcastle if Newcastle get the 10. Chelsea would need 12, maybe 13 out of the 15 available, and of course one of them would be a game against Newcastle, and we're already deciding that Newcastle have won that game, so they can't pick up those points. So that's 3, 6, 9, that'd be 12, and that would include them beating Forest away in the last game, which would obviously be a very difficult feat. I think Forest have got good fixtures, I really do. Brentford at home, they don't have a lot to play for. Palace away, Palace don't have a lot to play for. Leicester at home, that's 3 points. West Ham away, West Ham don't have a lot to play for. And then Chelsea at home in the last game of the season. What you want as a Newcastle fan is you want, on that last day of the season, both teams, Chelsea and Forest, needing to pick up points and then playing each other in that last game of the season. And Newcastle have got a home game against Everton, who shouldn't have any, well, we don't have anything to play for. So that would be an ideal scenario if you can get to that stage. So look, you can kind of tie yourself up in knots a little bit about it, but I've come down to the sort of feeling that 10 points will be enough for Newcastle. I think 9 should do it. So if you win your 3 home games, you could lose away against Brighton. That's a tough game, by the way, even though Brighton don't have a huge amount to play for. Bad record down there. You could lose away at Arsenal, and I think as long as you win those 3 games, Ipswich, Everton and Chelsea at home, you should be fine. Huge 3 game tomorrow. If Newcastle win that tomorrow, puts you in such a strong position in terms of looking at the table. They'll take Newcastle up to 62, which is 5 above Villa, having played the same amount of games. And then, of course, also it would take you up to 62, which actually would be a point above Manchester City as well. Albeit Man City have got easier games to come. But I just think tomorrow's huge, just to get those 3 points on the board. And then I think, again, a bit like the Villa game last week, it takes the pressure off a little bit ahead of the Brighton match. I felt that against Villa, although it was a bad defeat, it wasn't the end of the world because you weren't expecting to win that. I don't think you're expecting to beat Brighton. If you beat Brighton away, then you're flying. You're absolutely flying. So, looking at it, I think it will be Man City, Newcastle and Forest who are the 3. I think it'll be Villa and Chelsea who miss out. Remember, I was the person who predicted Newcastle would win the Cup back in December, so I hope you believe me. I think Villa and Chelsea will miss out. I think Villa might end up with potentially 10 or 12 points and still miss out. I think Chelsea, anything could happen with their games, but the fact they've got Newcastle away, a match I think Newcastle will win, and Forest away, a match that I think could potentially be a draw, or Forest will win, will be the games that costs Chelsea in the end up. So apologies if that was confusing. Let me know your thoughts. In my opinion, Man City, Newcastle, Forest, all in the Champions League, Chelsea and Villa to miss out. Okay guys, see you in the next one. Enjoy the weekend. Bye bye.